2024 at 7:02 p.m. Everybody could rise to say the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk Williams, call the roll.
Yes. Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Lynch?
Yes.
Trustee Grove?
Yes.
Trustee Taylor? Here. Trustee Williams?
Would somebody like to make a motion for the approval of the regular board meeting minutes of December 3rd, 2024?
Second.
First by Williams, second by Taylor. Any questions or corrections? Clerk Williams, call the roll.
Trustee Brown? Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Lynch? Yes. Trustee Grove? Trustee Taylor? Yes. Trustee Williams?
Yes.
Would somebody like to make a motion for the approval of the presentation of the board meeting minutes of December 10th, 2024? So moved. Trustee Lynch. Trustee Clark. Any questions or corrections? Clerk Williams, call the roll.
Trustee Brown? Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Lynch?
Yes.
Trustee Grove?
Yes.
Trustee Taylor? Yes. Trustee Williams?
Treasurer's report. Brian Hanson.
Good evening, Board, and residents. The bills payable for December 12th, 2024 actually should be December 17th. Corporate was $92,658.31. Motor fuel tax was $11,571.19. Sewer and water was $203,382 even. TIF Main Street was at $9,716.50. Glen Woody Golf Course at $25,789.21. TIF Halsted North was at $45,802.22. TIF Halsted South was at $152,619.75 for a total of $541,839.72. I am going to also comment to two additional checks that are going to be going out related to United Rentals. That these were past due payments that we need to get in order to get our vac truck fixed and back to us. So those two checks will be on top of the amounts I just read. One was for water and sewer, the first one, for $12,280.62, and the Corp group had a check needing to go to United Rental also for $141.49. Related to all of this, we did have a transfer needing to go between the TIF North and Industrial, $45,000 actually coming out of the Industrial TIF going into Halsted North, all due to paying additional expenses to the Fire Station 2 expenses. Another transfer that is not listed on here that will be done, if you remember right, we spent over $600,000 towards the Air Quillen project that originally was charged to the Parks program. When doing or completing the budget, we did move that to go all under the water sewer fund. So this will just be moving that money between the two because we did expend that out of the general account when that bill was paid. This is a fully reimbursable piece that's coming. We have not received a check to this point.
Somebody like to make a motion to approve the bills payable? Trustee Roll first. Do we have a second? Second. Trustee Lynch. Any questions?
I do. I'm sorry, Brian. So the $16,000 will be transferred from the general fund to
The expense is going to be moved from general fund to the water sewer. Hence, since we paid that bill, the checking accounts are going to be flipped also, so that the money comes out of the sewer water fund.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Clerk Williams, call the roll.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Lynch?
Yes.
Trustee Roll? Trustee Taylor? Yes. Trustee Williams?
Payroll.
So payroll for the date of December 13, 2024, corporate $146,382.02, sewer and water $21,885.28, paid on call $12,692.09, elected positions $1,968.40, Glenwood Golf Course $14,669.68, vendor checks of $551.40. Overtime, police was $7,850.50, which reimbursable amount of that was $1,374.60. Sewer and water, $2,842.91. Public Works, $2,048.59. The economic development stipend was $461.54. Deputy clerk stipend was $192.31 for a total payroll of $211,536.72.
We'd like to make a motion to approve the payroll. Trustee Taylor, do we have a second?
Mayor, I'll second, with the exception of the tip transfer until the board has an understanding of the, total expenditures for the fire project at this point. So if we can table that until after, at least that portion, so after we get a report of status report of the fire station.
Okay, but this is for payroll, so no one payroll.
This was, this was on the payroll.
We can go back.
Can we go back? Yes.
So let's finish the payroll.
I'll second.
Okay, Trustee Lynch. Do we have any questions? Clerk Williams, call the roll.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Lynch?
Yes.
Trustee Roll?
Yes.
Trustee Taylor? Yes. Trustee Williams?
Chief, did you want to talk about the fire station for Trustee Lynch?
Yes, Your Honor. Brian and I have worked on this, and it's not completed yet, because I've just been a little busy trying to complete the fire station. However, at this particular point in time, we have an expenditure total of $1,721,506.22. After backing out a couple of the expenditures which were included in the budget, which was our asbestos and the trailer rental, a couple of things we have to adjust there. So you can see that we're probably about $78,500 still to the good, or considerable amount between the approved of 1,883 to the currently expended of 1,721, and I just need some time to put together. There's a few final payouts from the original work that was done. A couple more things. We're going to be tight, but I will have to be back probably the next meeting to give the recap with a couple of additional expenditures. But I don't believe it's going to go far over our previously approved 1,883,953.28.
Thank you.
So, Chief, I'm sorry, Chief, do you have, at least at this point, a projected amount of how much will be over budget for the fire station?
No, I think we're still going to be pretty close to that 1,883. But I just had that time because I need to go through all the originals. There was some retainage on some of the contractors that we need to pay. Maybe there was a 5% here and a 7% there. I just physically haven't had time to go through and recap all of that. Cindy created the spreadsheets, Brian, we're trying to compare those all. But I think I'm guessing we'll be slightly over 20,000, 30,000, but I don't think much more than that.
Are these now over to the public, or anybody wants to say?
I got a quick, Mayor, can I just ask Chief a quick question?
Sure.
Or maybe Brian with a while, between both of you. So, when we see that, there are gonna be like TIF transfers of a certain amount, where, if anywhere, or can we see, like, 45,000 was transferred, okay? But what was that used for? Is that an itemized, was that one big thing? Was that like about 12 different things that?
So when I come up with that value, it's based on what is in the accounts payable portion. So if you went through all the detail, you'd see the ones that are flagged for Halsted North. If you wanted to see the vendors that were paying, but
So that's where,
that's how I'm backing in the value that's needed
got it.
transferred.
Thank you.
So, Mayor, if I could, I realize this has already been passed, but, and I understand, Chief, that, with the construction of the fire station, there's a lot to that, but we've not had a real detailed financial analysis of the fire station, in quite a while, and so I think that before another opportunity comes before the board to approve funds for that we have something in hand that shows fiscal status and projected end date for the fire station. I just think that it's be prudent for us to know specifically where we are, what's remaining, and what that consists of. Because meeting after meeting, we are approving transfers for the fire station, which relatively speaking has to happen, but I think the board needs to also be aware of the financial status that we are currently within. And I appreciate these numbers, I do. And I know you were out on vacation a few weeks ago, but I know I've talked about this for quite a while to try to get a status update for where we are with that. Because this is a large project for the village. This is close to a $2 million project. And I think that we should be able to consistently track where we are financially with the project. So even with the outstanding costs and projected costs to come, because now I'm being facetious, Chief, but I know we talked and said we weren't going to go over budget with this, but it looks like we are. So I just like to have a clear illustration financially where we're tracking.
There will be a recapitulation by the time we get to the next board meeting with all the end dates. Just physically, I haven't had the time to sit down and do it. But when you talk about the transfers, remember, there's been nothing moved that hasn't already been approved. And nothing's been approved that hasn't been already had board
No,
action.
that's clear.
I'm not going over it.
I understand, but I don't understand the totality of the project. So
Right, no, that's that.
we're very clear on the approval of TIF transfers, but in terms of expenses to budget, I just like to go over it.
And we made good progress on it in the last week or so. To put them on now wouldn't be proper. They're just not guaranteed yet, so we're trying to get to the bottom of it appropriately, so I only have to come back one time.
Thank you.
Thank you. The meeting now open to the public for anything anybody wants to bring up. Just write your name and address down, and you can address the board.
Governor to Wisconsin. I just want to say to the Board of Trustees that this is no reflection on anybody, other than the fact I just want to commend Trustee Lynch. Trustee Lynch, you seem to always be above and beyond the board to try to get to the bottom of something, to get an answer from the people who come to these meetings, as opposed to being left week after week, we'll get back to A, B, and C. So I commend you once again. As far as I was concerned, take the leadership of all the trying to inspire about something. Ms. Brown doesn't do it, Ms. Rowe, or anybody else. I'm just simply saying, you all are more outspoken more so than anybody else on board. And with that being said, once again, I think that you epitomize what trustees should be. We are trusting you to give us the correct information and to get to the bottom of it, as opposed to spend this money, then when I come to the board, we still haven't gotten a correct answer, but the money's spent already. That's all. I mean, we can figure out from there, I guess, pretty much what I'm thinking about how I'm going with it. So, the rest of the trustees, please get behind this and let you find out what's going on. Money that's being spent in the community.
Exactly. tip money can be used and accounted for to the penny. Okay. I think the original firehouse proposal was actually 1.4 million back when I was before. Anyway, I digress. So we have not seen any progress on our project at Halsted and Stratton. So another promise has been broken, and we want to know why.
We're in the process of pricing out the different things. You'll see progress there very shortly. So we're just pricing things out. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get quotes and things.
You know, that's price out the demo.
Well, I'm sorry, but well, first of all, we're in a problem of not beautification.
Yes, that's
right. So, if you remember over the summer, when I continued to do some printouts, diagrams, and and also it had price values on there. Remember we came over to the village and we copied all of them? Remember that? Yeah. And so you've had that information as far as pricing. And so, you never got back to me as far as what you did with those documents, or if they were passed out to the board, or, there was no, I mean, we never discussed any progress then about the project, so.
We were also assuming there'd be a public works project.
Most of it, but
Yeah.
some of it takes expertise, like the stamping of the, refreshing the stamping of the bricks and, fake bricks, the faux bricks, whatever you want to call it. So,
I was assuming that at least I see the demo or maybe the curb, and I can say, well, maybe you do the planners in the spring. You make it that way.
you'll see work done within the next 2 weeks.
So next 2 weeks. Okay,
Well,
well,
we just not heard anything about progress, so.
You'll see work within the next 2 weeks.
okay. So my next comment is, I see incentives on the agenda. So everybody can agree that property taxes in Cook County are oppressive. I don't think you get anybody to argue that point, right? But you're making an effort to help out certain businesses. And I appreciate that. And I'm sure they do too. But you recall 6 months ago, I asked for some assistance to the homeowners. No action was taken on that. So, if a business can get a 60% reduction in their taxes, what about the homeowners? So, let's talk about the old building at 349 West 195th Street. Some of you old timers like me, Tony, sorry about that, might call it the Angel Abatement Building, right? So Angel Abatement got tip money to repair the building back in 2009. 5 years later, they were foreclosed on.
Can't do it. 5 years later, what?
5 years later, they got foreclosed on.
Oh.
Now, in 2019, we had an attempt to give them a Class 8, right? For some reason, John, you might know because you did the development agreement, and I talked to Ira. They did file for Class 8 in the fall of 19.
Yeah, but was it approved?
Yep. So the bottom line is, here we are 5 years later with the same request. So what I want to do is give you a little history on the old Angel Abatement. So, back in 2012, I think it was, their tax bill was over $59,000. It's only $45,000 now. So their taxes, the tax bill on that property have actually gone down 25% over the last 15 years. I don't think there's any homeowner in this room to say that. I know I can't. Their taxes now are $44,000. And I do agree, it's higher than Will County. Will County will probably be $1 per foot. Their taxes are $3.40 per foot. But they have something in Glenwood that's more valuable than their tax bill. They have a contract for Glenwood to provide gaming. You might recall that contract, the Gardner, when it was signed illegally, it first applied and the board approved it in September of 19. done and lose that contract, that's up to them. Well, I would think that they would rather have the $63,000 that they make from gaming in Glenwood and just simply pay the $88,000 in property tax. This is why the math needs to be done. Math must be done when considering an incentive. It's not the swag approach. It's not taking a silly wild ass guess. It's work. So I recommend that you vote no on the incentive, simply due to the fact that the taxes are only $3.40 per square foot. There are a lot of buildings, including the building in Trouble, $12 per square foot. I think that's the one that needs some help. Thank you.
Question, when people move into the village, whether they buy or rent, George in the hall. When they buy or rent, are they obligated, or is there a package that they give to these people so they know what the rules are for Glenwood? Yeah, we give them a local Glenwood package. Even the renters? I think we do.
When they hit their water account, that's correct.
Because personally, we got a problem with a person in the neighborhood, and they said they don't know nothing about anything. And these people are constantly being a problem. This is the same house that's been shot up 3 times in the last 6 months. They don't pay attention to the rules. They insult people as they go down the street. The police chief has been on it. They just don't care. And they're claiming no one ever gave them anything, any type of information of what the rules are for the village of London.
They probably didn't read it, sounds like.
Well, that's what I'm asking. And the other thing is, coming up in a few months, with vehicle stickers. Do non-residents or people who rent, are they obligated to buy a village sticker? Yes. You can go down Maple and give out 50 tickets. That's how many vehicles just on Maple. Why it's not being done, has been done for a few years. I don't know what the policy is, but that's a lot of revenue that we're missing out with. I remember years ago, you would come out from church and it'd be a dozen cars with tickets on them for no vehicle sticker. I mean, revenue is revenue. You may not like it, but we still need it. So, that's it.
Thank you.
Give your name and address before we leave.
Of what?
Your name and address.
Oh, George Inglethaler, 514 Maple Drive.
Write it down, the chief is saying.
So, Chief Pettigrew, is there any recourse for this against the village ordinances for, renters, landlords, and recourse?
There are, yes, there are. We do give packets to the, renters as well as the landlords, landlord meetings. I know which property he's talking about, and we are, unfortunately, people, they're aware of it, they don't care. We've been working with the landlord, the person who owns the property, Nathan's site. They're trying to go through the legal process to get them evicted, which, as you know, could kind of take some time. So we have the cooperation of the person who actually owns the property. They're at wit's end too, because their property is being damaged by the lifestyle and choices that the tenants at a particular place make. They want them out of there, but they have to go through a legal process, which wheels of justice, these type of things sometimes won't turn very slow. As we get to winter, it kind of always comes with grinding halt as far as eviction. So, but yes, we have issued citations, we have arrests, we can. We'll also work with other departments on problem houses to make sure that all our ordinances are being addressed
they're not paying on water, make sure that we have water. They're paying the water bills, we contact, and we do what we can multi-pronged approach, but we can only do so far, we are pushing them with the law.
So, Commissioner Moore, I allow this. John Parkin says, I know when, and maybe because we're home, I know in Harvey, at one point, the mayor was increasingly closing down businesses and homes that were on the very extensive list of violence, drug use, law violations, and, I mean, his businesses were locked out, and those individuals were put out of their homes. Do we have any type of recourse like that, similar to?
Someone has to leave, they would go to the property. Appropriate way to end that. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. When someone has a lease, they have a right to that property, and the proper method of thinking that needs to be used, and that unfortunately requires a court process.
So, because the home rule is no exception?
No. People have the right to that, what goes on in our area, I won't recommend that we do anything. But what they do, get away with it,
I just wondered, since we were home,
No.
there was a
It's still
distinction.
it's still a court process. Okay.
In fact, the state right now is, they're floating balloons whether or not to change the crime-free housing ordinance. Which we're not.
I have a question real quick. So Chief, what happens when, if the house is shot up a fourth time and the neighboring homes, or someone gets killed or someone gets hurt around there? Because I don't know where the house is. I don't know if you can tell us where the home is. I mean, but how much are we patrolling that home? Or, I mean, it's like, I don't know.
We patrol an adequate amount. As far as what happens when we conduct an investigation, and we do that, fortunately, all the incidents that have happened at this location were targeted there. They were not random. They were interpersonal conflicts, domestic people had with others. And just like any other investigation, if there's other additional damage to any instance, we'll certainly investigate as appropriate. We're limited by how much cooperation the tenants give us, which is not always any. So, it's an unfortunate situation. We can do the best of our ability, but we have this particular residence. If they're not cooperating with us, if they're not reporting it, it's very hard for us to go after them. They know who's doing it, they're just not telling us. We've tried, this is unfortunately the landlord, I don't know that they have a soft spot for the particular people or whatnot, but they had them out before, they brought them, the men with new relative, but it's just it's a problem, and we work what we can legally to try to help them move somewhere else. And fortunately, like I said, only the sheriffs can do evictions, and the legal process is in place, and a lot of it is on the actual property owner. Because while they are here as they are tenants, as the attorney said, they have rights to that property.
Sure. Just in the event of the same way, we do some type of investigation on the people who live there, so they talk about their background. It says that they should or should not necessarily be in a certain community or something like that.
No, we can't do that. We get them off.
Chairman Moore. Chairman Moore.
Good evening, everyone. Leon Moore, 318 Blackstone. I just want to commend Trustee Lynch as well as Accountant Jensen in terms of monitoring transfer of funds. As you know, I'm always looking for some legitimacy to make sure that the funds that are transferred are accounted for. We don't have to circle back and try to figure out what they went for. So I think the only addition, and it may have already been covered, in terms of the firehouse, in terms of transferring money vis-a-vis different tips, it would be helpful, at least for myself sitting in the audience, to know what balance, that we have against that 100, not that million. Is it million eight? Okay. And so if you could include all the road report.
Over $1 million.
I thought it was.
What's the total dollar amount? You think 187?
The total, I'm sorry, the total approved budget?
Yeah.
1883.
1883.
1883, and we're at 1721.
Okay, all I'm suggesting is that in terms of the transfer, it would be helpful for us who are not in the inside to know the balance that is due against that 183.
Understand a lot, I don't have it in front of me, but I would caution that there was some dollars in that tip to begin with, so there won't be $1,883,000 coming out of industrial TIF in order to pay everything.
No, I understand that in terms of that, when you make the decision, actually get the invoices from the firehouse in terms of what you need to pay. But it seems to me that we need a privilege check. You got Kevin, you got yourself, and you got Commissioner Lynch. So we can all agree on that same page so that we don't have to sit out here and wonder the balance. And so the trustees have a sense of how much more money needs to be transferred. Okay, thank you very much for that piece, because I keep track of that. On the agenda, I'm sorry, okay, is that any better?
Yes.
I tend to talk a little fast, so if I'm going too fast, bear with me. Going over the agenda, there are a couple of items that I wanted to make sure that I understand. One of which, of course, is the appointments. And as I mentioned there last time, you get a resume of people that you want to appoint, but we in the audience will include. And the last appointment, the gentleman didn't take the time to introduce himself and give the citizens as to what, not only his background, as to what he brings to the table. So if you have appointments tonight, and if the persons are here, I would ask that in addition to your oath of office, but you ask them to give us a little resume as to who they are and why and what they're going to bring to the table.
Right, typically do that, I don't know if you do it last week.
Okay.
I did put the resume in.
It was in the packet, but obviously, the packet wasn't on the website. But that piece of the packet wasn't.
Yeah, it was.
No.
The resume was, that was in the meeting back.
The resumes are not in the packet. Trust me.
The last appointment was in the back.
Can you mic up, Mayor, please?
I'm sorry.
The last appointment was, resume was in the back.
I'm not
Well,
going
when I
to.
say an appointment, like this.
Okay, that's all on the agenda, so I suggest that if that's going to happen, we would also like to know what that person brings to the table, so if we get that in the packet, fine, that person can give us a little resume of their speech.
It was in the back, but I didn't email his resume.
Okay. I'm not going to do it, it's not.
It's only one page.
It's on page, okay, I missed it. Okay, and then in addition to that, I'm still concerned in terms of, the triple duties that Mr. Jansen is serving in terms of when you say that you call for the treasurer's report, are we is Mr. Jansen acting treasurer in addition to being the general accountant? You have not made an official appointment, is that correct? Okay, that's fine. And as I say, I don't know if anybody else is concerned about it. I just want to have some separation of the duties since Mr. Jansen, he kind of originates the accounts, and he also impacts in terms of the payroll as well as the report. So as quickly as we can, as soon as we can, we need to get some separation of duties in order to assure the board and the citizens that we have people taking a different look at the accounts so that we don't overlap. And that's my suggestion.
You got an opening?
Please. In addition to that, we're going to repopulate the finance committee as soon as we can because a lot of the information that comes to the board does not have the analysis necessarily that we used to have in between the board having to make a decision relative to the available funds and the various other accounting actions. So if we can come up with some kind of a time frame by which we're going to repopulate the finance committee, that will also help us kind of keep track of the things that go to the board. And so if we can put that on the agenda at some point, that would be helpful as well. There's one thing on the agenda that catches me by surprise. There's an ordinance change. Mr. Donahue was going to propose that we change the ordinance relative to the use of the village building. It just caught me totally by surprise. I didn't realize that there was a problem with the use of the village building. It's not used for political purposes. So what's the genesis of that request to change the ordinance to specifically say we can't do politics in the village building during off hours?
There was a complaint at the last election cycle that was being done, so we just wanted to have
Okay. So yeah, I think everybody's aware, at least the people in town are aware that you cannot do politicking in an inappropriate venue. So that's fine. If that's the genesis of it, that's fine. The other issue for me in terms of something to do with we have an ethics ordinance. And the ethics ordinance, I don't know if you're not familiar with it, basically what it does is prohibit the staff, any paid staffer, from being involved in political activities, on duty, off duty, whatever the case might be. Off duty is not so much, but we don't have an ethics officer, so we're entering into the election series season, and so I know I'm not a politician, so I just want to say that the paid staff has to also be as cautious as the politicians have to be when they use public property. So I don't know if we plan to appoint an ethics officer who could oversee the fact that village resources are not misdirected for political activity. That would be helpful. And so we can take all of the suspicion is that every time we see a board member comes through the building, is that politics are really business of the village. So that would be helpful as well. I'm looking for amens if we go through this process.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay, the other issue, I know, and this is Mr. Donahue, and we're going to go and approve the levy, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm looking at the ordinance that is attached to it, and is that a part of the levy process that we have to attach that ordinance, the appropriations ordinance to it?
Yeah, you put the total amount, you put part that's appropriated, the amount is to be raised, but that's where we always do.
Okay, but looking at the attachment to the proposed approval is the old budget.
This is the standard ordinance we've used forever.
I understand the ordinance, but looking at the numbers on the budget that's attached, or the ordinance, the appropriated ordinance, that's not the right one. It doesn't have the salary increase or anything.
Well, that's what we're levying by tax.
Okay, okay, let me see if I understand. Now, we approved the budget at the last meeting, is that correct? The ordinance budget, whatever you want to call it. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, okay, so my point is that the one that's attached to the motion that you're going to have to approve tonight is not the one that was approved. I mean, take a look, I have it here. Did you guys look at it?
So since I was the one who put it together, I'll answer to the fact that I followed the last year format, which took the appropriations values, not the budget values, in order to complete this levy.
I don't understand.
So what's in there is the July's appropriation values that were approved, not the village budget.
Makes no sense to me. It just makes no sense to me. I mean, that the appropriations budget that we approve is not going to be part of the levy process because it doesn't incorporate the changes that were made subsequent to September 17th was the previous one, and the round that we approved very recently. This is not the same budget. I mean, this is not the same.
So, Brian,
I don't understand the process. Maybe it's me.
Attach the current approved budget
believe we actually submit an approved budget to the Cook County Department. What they get from us was the appropriations, which was done back in July.
No, I get it. I'm asking, why, what would be the setback for?
And again, I kind of followed the previous year's exercises, which were very consistent of using the appropriations values that were approved on as the starting point to do the levy calculations off of.
Commissioner Moore, when you were on finance committees, is that how it was approached? Did we always use the appropriations recommendation as opposed to the past budget when we actually get that levy approval?
And I don't recall specifically, but I always thought, and I have to go back and check, is that we use the final product, in other words, the product that was approved by the board, the final go around in terms of that. That was the submission to determine whether or not we're going to have a levy increase. So I'm not sure why we are doing it differently now, because it makes no difference. I mean, we're going to do the levy, there's no question about it. But you can't, in my judgment, use a different ordinance levy amount that doesn't comport to what you're going to be asking in terms of your tax levy. So
The budget is never filed with the county clerk. That's our internal document that the village goes by and works by in its day-to-day operations. Is probably the most important of all those documents. The county gets their appropriation ordinance and our tax levy. Tax levy is only one small part of the revenue the village gets. And I think the village has always used the appropriation ordinance as a starting point for the levy. It's listed the appropriation amount as then it's indicated the amount of that as proposed to be raised by the levy the county operates off of. So that's why we've always done it that way.
in terms of the submission, John, I checked, the last submission we did not, I know that the appropriations is kind of just a paper exercise, okay, in order to get our money from the county, etc. But I can't recall us not using the final budget that we approved as a part of that submission. And if I'm wrong,
We never have submitted our budget to the county and municipality does.
so this is the
The
motion.
point is, I believe, Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, that this total tax levy is the same as it was last year.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Yes, we agree.
Correct.
This will be the 6 or 7 year road we have raised.
Right. Yeah, I understand that part, but I'm saying, my point is that why then would we not use the latest version of the approved amounts, even though the ordinance was approved at guesstimate amounts, which you said that doesn't make any difference as long as procedurally we get in on time, the ordinance. And so, if it makes no difference, it makes no difference, but I'm just pointing out the fact that this.
The county just wants to know what our tax levy is, and that's what this tells us.
Yeah, but if you look at the submission of CAP attached to it, it doesn't balance out with the levy in some suggestion. That's all. It is not a big deal.
Right, I agree, it's not, and the purpose here is to get the tax levy.
Exactly.
And the appropriation is kind of a funny number anyway, because we're supposed to appropriate with the idea of taking into account a lot of things that can happen and never will. For example, sometimes when you appropriate, you have to put extra money into places because buildings burn down at times, cars get destroyed. You don't know how that's gonna happen over the next year, so you have to make some overages in what you're appropriating to address what could happen. So the appropriation thing is kind of an oddity in the law that's been there for years.
Okay, well, we can leave the point. I don't understand why then we don't submit the latest information along with our levy requests and stuff like that. And if it makes no difference, we wasted a lot of time. That's all.
I mean, you really, county only cares about what we're levying, it's the same as last year, and those are the only numbers that we're going to pay attention to. See, to make it easier for the county, we probably match the appropriation amount in that ordinance on that count be the same as what they previously had. Otherwise, there's a chance they might be wrong.
Okay, can I ask Mr. Jensen, is this the format that we used for previous year? Yes, sir. Okay, we'll move on. I don't want to take a lot of time.
You already have.
In terms of the agreement that you're gonna be considering. And I'm trying to get my hands around, it ended, allegedly it was gonna end in September, we extended it to December, now we're gonna extend it a year.
Well, it would only come out if we wanted to, we're extending the agreement, and it might not be out at all. But, Ryan, do you want to expound on that?
Yes, basically what the agreement does, Mr. Moore, gives us the ability to keep them engaged as we need to. So basically, what we're doing now is, as we get the plan that comes up, in terms of what the plan is going forward on Cooper, as it relates to staff and the position that they're going to play in the village. So what we're doing now is creating part of the succession plan and also part of a way to make sure that we're moving forward in the finances and areas. But if you can kind of hold that question until we get to the item, I think the information I'll share with you.
Okay, very good. I was just curious because the cost of that is almost like outsourcing your accounting now at a very high cost. If you remember, we were at $200,000 in the last contract. And then I'm just a little concerned if we go forth and extend this for a year from this December. I don't know what the cost of that would be, depending on the staff that we have available in the house to do the kind of work that necessarily is to do the financial statements. And so that's why I'm cautious about just a kind of open-ended request to approve this extension. And if it's a matter of how we use them, or if we don't have to use them, then we have the option of terminating it short of the 2025 year. So I think we look at this very cautiously because I see that the Cooper has an option, and we have an option. Once we approve this contract.
We have the option of not hiring.
I beg your pardon?
We have the option of not hiring.
Yeah, that's the option, but if you hire them, if you agree to this contract, then what is the option of us terminating the contract mid-term? That's my concern. It doesn't say that in the contract.
Why would we just don't have to hire them? Because this is on a basis.
Well, I understand that.
What we use them for, so we wouldn't pay them if we didn't use them.
Okay. I'm making the point tonight is it's on your agenda for approval to hire them. Okay. And so we have the option of not going, if you vote tonight to approve them, to hire them. You're giving them the option.
So what we can do is amend the option and say there's a 30-day.
Fine, that's fine. Okay, I'd like to commend Joe and Derek in terms of going through the purchase process, in terms of making sure that we have either a sole source supplier or a bid process that we completed before, because there's a number of expenditures that you're going to be voting on. As you well know, there is a purchase manual requirement that over $30 amount you got to bid process, and we just did that. So I would suggest that, if you feel that there's sufficient funds to fund his request, that he did do it properly submitted. Okay, I think that's it for me, and I'm waiting on the discussion with respect to the art funds, and I see that there is a $150,000 proposed to be used to, in effect, start the process of upgrading our software, and I commend the board for letting that happen, because as I say, a lot of the work that is being done can be short-circuited if we have an update on the software, knowing that it takes a while to do software update because you gotta do a whole lot, but we won't ever get there if we don't start. So I thank you for that, and if you have any questions of me, I certainly will be happy to entertain them. Say enough said. I'm good.
Anybody else?
My name is Tracy Atkins. I'm on Roberts Drive. And I'm here today for a safety issue, and that is speed, the constant speed on Roberts Drive. I've been living out here for nearly 23 years. In the last 3 or 4 years, my family and I have lost 3 cars due to people speeding down Roberts and just crashing into the parked cars. Thank God no one was in the cars. Like 2 months ago, not even 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, a guy that lives on Kenneth Court used Roberts Drive, speeding like 80, 90 miles an hour and crashed into a parked car, pushed the car back 3 houses down, and it was like an inch away from those people's window. So my question is, what is the strategy to combat speeding in Glenwood, especially Roberts Drive, because it's like the first street that they reach when they come into the village from 183rd and Cosby. And it has been historically the street that they use. I mean, if you just sitting in your living room, you hit speeding cars. The church on the corner of Strife Roberts, if you go in the parking lot, you see drag racing tire marks. So it's a safety. It's the church parking lot. There's tire marks in there every day. I mean, I walk down here, and right now it's just really bad. And like I said, we've lost 3 cars just being parked in front of
We had the police conduct, and the chief experimented, but we did do a speed mitigation study or proposal. The chief, if you want to just go over that, we're in the process of doing it now. So we recognize it as a problem. Also a problem in Cola, the longer stretches of the road in Irvin, in Brookwood Point, down in Brookwood Point, so the center and the forest, so we do recognize the problem. Chief, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I do recommend, first off, when you do contact us when this is occurring. That way we can send out employee officers there. As you may or may not know, in these board meetings, that we get complaints about speeding on many streets throughout the town. And we've got a finite number of officers, so we can only be in certain places at certain times. So when we get these calls, we're able to look at the information and see what hot times are. Usually it's people going to work and coming home from work. So let us know when this is occurring. We also have what's called a STEP grant, which is a sustained traffic enforcement program. We hire back off-duty officers whose sole focus is to work on traffic offenses, whether it's distracted driving, speeding, drunk driving, things like that. These officers are dedicated only to those things. Other than the patrol officers on duty, who have to handle burglars, domestics, emergency calls. So that's how we're able to help address that. Part of that, when we do speed education, we try to conduct traffic enforcement, explain to people the hazards of that. We're in the process of exploring options such as speed bumps and other environmental changes to roadways to curb and deter speeding. None of that's easy. Some of the simple solutions could be temporary speed bumps, but you have to make sure you're putting in the right place and you're not causing other problems, such as they don't impact flow of rainwater. Make sure that you're not in an area where it's a primary route for emergency first responders. But so we've got some different ideas and different concepts we're working on. But most of what I would say is contact us. I see all the calls for service on a daily basis. I can't remember last time it's been a while since I had a call or complaint with speeding on Roberts in particular. And what actually you were speaking of, I know the offender was cited and identified there. But again, I encourage you to contact us, call us out when it's happening, and we pledge resources. Otherwise, our sergeants in this board meeting to address the Roberts issue. Hopefully through random enforcement, we get people voluntarily apply the laws.
Okay, well, I have installed my cameras, but again, they're speeding so fast. By the time they get to your door, I can't give you a description of it because they're gone. They're like 80, 90 miles an hour. So thank you for taking my call a couple of weeks ago because I wanted to know what citations was issued to the offender because he left the scene of this accident after he crashed all the cars up. So it is good that you guys are on it. I just wanted to see, was there some kind of solution, because I'm perplexed at this point as to why, what solutions can we do? I mean, when I first moved out here, there used to be kind of like a patrol car that would sit sporadically and just, kind of deter people from speeding. So maybe that's something that we can.
The car used to be there to they're getting pushed throughout the town. He'll be at, he or she will be at Rogers, most of the time, he'll be at Arcola, Minerva, 192nd, so we have to deploy our resources strategically. We also have to handle calls for service. We have officers there, I'm sure you see them every morning, and every afternoon. The kids are on the way to school, when they're getting out of school. Those are our primary times we are in school zones, because that's when the children are making their crossings to and from home to school. So that's, obviously, it has a higher priority. We do go out there, we know that people are going to be speeding on the way home from work. That's unfortunately, a common problem where you have traffic and cars throughout the country, anywhere we have motoring public. Some of the solutions are more complex than others. That's why we had to we're doing studies to see what's available, because when you alter the landscape, it's not inexpensive, and it has an impact on all involved. So it's something we don't want to knee-jerk reaction to just do something right off the bat, but collect data and do it intelligently. But we are working with public works. Right now, unfortunately, this is the time of year where we can't have a temporary speed bump installed, because we don't know when the next snowball is going to come and just plow. And plows got to get through these speed bumps.
Well, I'm not personally advocating for speed bumps, because I know that that's gonna take some time to implement with the studies and things like that. However, I do want some type of solution, because I don't want to see anyone's kid get hit. Because these people are speeding all day long, and they're drag racing down this church parking lot. I have not seen
I've
that.
spoken with the church, and I've given them some solutions. They don't want to close it off, just eliminate the option. They don't want to do that, so they're looking into getting concrete parking blocks to prevent the open area of the lot for the drag racing that is going there and do the burnouts. I said, alter the landscape, make that practical. They seem to be receptive to that. I don't control their timeline, but hopefully they're going to work on a solution, because I've spoken to them about that, made suggestions about changing the environment to make it less attractive to somebody going there and do burnouts.
Okay, so I'll call you in regards to the case, because I did go to the court date for the offender, and it's going to be rescheduled until February, and they're going to request that when the police department show up.
They'll subpoena the officers.
Yeah. So okay, and then my last thing is, I'm just going to inject myself on the issue that the person was having about neighbors and the landlord and the shooting in the house. I am a regional property manager who specializes in evictions, and what we do is we go after the landlord. So we citate the landlord if he's not being responsible for his tenants, and that normally happens, and get them out. And Cook County is a lengthy process, but you can get anyone out of your property within 6 months if you serve them and go through the process. So this is something I can provide those resources if needed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay.
Can I ask a quick question here?
Yeah.
Chief, what's the cost of speeding tickets? Is there a staggered rate or a flat rate?
That's up to the hearing officer, Martin. I don't know what, I think it's 115 or something, some of the tickets. I'd have to check.
I thought we set our own.
No, we can't. We cannot do moving violations, so we can only do parking enforcement for the most part.
Okay, communications from the mayor's office. Consideration of an expenditure for remaining ARPA funds. Just so everybody knows, this is a outline. This is not what we're finally going to do with the funds. If you read the ordinance, it says in there that we can reallocate the funds towards certain things. So this is a guideline, but not written in stone, just so everybody knows. Why don't we get a first and a second, and then we'll discuss. Would somebody like to make a motion for consideration on the expenditure of the remaining ARPA funds? So, Trustee Lynch.
Second.
Trustee Clark.
Brown.
Oh, Trustee Brown, I'm sorry. So, I got an email from Trustee Lynch, which has some good ideas in it, etc. We can discuss it, but we are not going to spend any of these funds until each individual project comes to the board. So, does anybody have any questions, suggestions, etc.?
a suggestion. I also emailed you my suggestions.
Yes.
But I still see, it's just my suggestion, $100,000 for holiday decorations. I read the ARPA rules, et cetera, and regulations, and unless I'm not reading it correctly, I didn't see where that fit, $100,000 in holiday decorations, but I could be wrong. So my suggestion is to take part of that, at least half of it, if not all of it, and replace that with replacing the heating and cooling system in the village, and also the fire department. You have staff that's freezing in the wintertime, hot in the winter, I mean, just from 80 degrees to 90 degrees to 50 degrees to 70 degrees. We have the same people coming out over and over again. We are paying them we have to be paying Mertz hundreds of thousands of dollars they're not fixing it. So if we keep putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, we're gonna keep spending more money instead of just allocating this to get it fixed. And the police department, to me, is always suffering. As far as their building is concerned, the heating and all that, I think we need to do something about that and not spend $100,000 on decorations, but put that over to where the staff and other employees can be comfortable.
Good point.
I can't imagine being in my house and not fixing the air and the heat. So I don't think that is fair for them to be in that type of situation either.
It's a good suggestion. Any other comments?
Thank you.
I do agree, we should reroute this holiday decoration amount. My recommendation was to redirect those funds to investing in solar lights for the village, and then also use that $60,000 for lighting to add to that $100,000, so that we can at least get a footprint started with lighting up subdivisions. I think that if we, because and Chief Walsh, correct me if I'm wrong, I know that this was an issue, I don't know the person who was on board at the time, but those, would this be similar to those fixtures I have on my house with the address, the insert a battery to light that up? Is this
The concept that staff brought forward was for the village to utilize a portion of the ARPA funds to purchase the LED fixtures, which would be distributed to each of the homeowners that signed up for the program. And those fixtures would be used to replace on every home, it's a code requirement that the coach light next to the front door. Every house has one. And several houses have two of them. Some of them also have, in a couple of subdivisions, have a third light, which is placed on the front peak of the garage. And the concept that staff brought forward to you was for us, the village to purchase a bulk of those, offer them to the resident for installation on their home. And then the resident would handyman, do it themselves. It's a fairly simple installation. It's a 2-wire, simple installation. But then those lights now would project light out onto the street into the public way from the front of the house. They're very directional. And if you've kept track with any of the latest lighting trends, they can make them almost for a specification, but the thought was working with Dave was to get them directional where they hit the center of the street almost from our normal setback of 25 feet on the houses. So it's not a solar product. There are solar options where you can actually, we talked about this one as well, even with the screw-in bases where you put a screw-in base on the parkway and erect a solar pole. I still think that technology's a little bit off in time, or we're getting close, but this is a more solid product. This is a similar product to the program we started and tried in the estates with Mr. Harold Copel. It was more geared toward the lampposts in the front yard. Many of those were converted from the old gas lantern, back when Arcola built the subdivisions. There was conversions. It became too costly to the resident if we were supplying the pole to get it hooked up. We even went further to align 3 electricians who gave us both rates that the resident could pay, and it was very cheap to do those. But that program didn't work because of the condition of mostly because of the condition of the light pole and or the conduit or the pipe that went back to the house. This program, we believe, is going to be more sustainable because it actually mounts on the house and everything. Every house does have that potential. And then the concept was maybe give a resident who signs up for the program maybe 90 to 120 days to actually affect the installation, or then they would have to turn the light back in, because what we didn't want to see was people taking the lights and then taking other properties. They need to be used in one. So the whole program would be the village purchasing the bulk of lights, and those lights are probably a good quality one, $50 a piece. So you can do the math, whatever number you put toward it, and then staff would create the program, do the inspection, issue the units, and then recheck to make sure that they are installed. And we could also get 2 or 3 electricians locally who would be willing to offer a set price to come to Deon Lynch's house and put that on front for $50 or whatever that might be. That's how we did it before. It was very limited in its success because we didn't have the second piece of it figured out. But I think that's a more rounded product.
So thank you. I know that was your recommendation. Now, whoever presented that, I appreciate that in consideration. I guess my only concern with that is that you'll get residents who, and I guess with anything, don't have full participation, but you'll get residents who, whether that cost associated to fixing that light is $25 or $50, some just won't do it. You know, they were being stuck with. It's a similar situation we were with how we were recommending. So I think it's a fantastic alternative, but I know that Brian said that he's spoken with the solar company he's spoken to. I'd like to at least explore that option to see what at least getting a sample footprint in the community would benefit us. And then if at some point, because we've got this large bulk of money, and I know that for years we've talked about lighting in Glenwood, and here's an opportunity for us to use these resources without getting into the general fund.
And I think that was, we talked about that as staff, and the concept there was, this was the actual issuance of the fixtures to the resident was a pretty rapid fix to getting some of this established, then doing that matrix of seeing, well, what areas didn't people take advantage of it, and filling in the blank spots. It was a discussion we had. So it's when you get into the solar project of lighting the community like that, Dave's done the research, he can give you the numbers, but it was millions of dollars to do regular lighting and structure, infrastructure, conduit, and wiring, and all of that stuff. It would be less than that. But in reality, 600, even if you took the whole amount of the ARPA funds and put them towards there, $600,000 isn't going to do a real big footprint.
And so I agree. And the company that I had referred, and I had Trustee Williams, Trustee Brown, and Trustee Rowe, during our convention, if you will, we had an opportunity to talk to the chief. And one of the unique things I like about this company was there was no underground wiring necessary for lighting. The structure, we would eliminate costs because they would educate our public works department on how to install public works would install. They would be battery operated, those batteries.
Solar powered?
They're solar powered, yeah. So there's no underground wiring, and so you eliminate a lot of the structural costs and a lot of the overhead for operational costs. But I'm just excited that we can explore it. So I hope that when we can get a presentation, we can. Secondly, I know we talked about this earlier, Brian, but I'm sorry, I couldn't make sure to mention, but the pump house purchase, I see that just as another cost for the village, unless we can guarantee financing as it being a historical site in Glenwood. I don't see the need in adding something else to the tax roll that doesn't generate revenue for us. Lastly, I know I mentioned previously that we split that cost of the senior center between senior center and police department. But in fact, in even having this conversation, I think that an additional use for those funds could be for a pilot program of bringing back community service officers. I don't know to what extent that on union negotiations, but I think that as we are talking through speed enforcement, that would be another deterrent to have more footprint, but also not take away from our personnel who have service calls that could respond to these type of situations. So whether that's a viable option for that cost, but I think that if we split that cost and we try this pilot program, we'll see what benefit at least this will yield to have that extra manpower without it having to come out of your budget or extend general fund resources to that option.
In that operation.
Looking into hiring community service officers, obviously they have limited abilities what they can do, but they can handle some of the calls, loose dogs and things like that. We have our officers to focus more on traffic complaints and things of that nature.
In regards to the split of the funds, we've been working as staff at the direction of the mayor. The village hall and the police department is included in the Main Street TIF. And there's some options we're looking at there to address Trustee Brown's concerns about the building's infrastructure. You're looking at a 25-year-old building that has a 25-year-old boiler and chiller system, which was overbuilt the first day it was turned on. Way back then, we're looking at some alternatives to put gas forced air units in. The attic to hold this building, you could probably hold a cotillion in every week. It's gigantic, and it has plenty of room to hold smaller commercial gas forced air units, which would zone the building into about 5 or 6 zones, and we would never end up with that full building out of heat or full building out of cool. And get rid of the boiler and the chiller system, which is outrageously expensive to maintain, and we've already spent way too much money keeping it going in the last 15 months. We'll have a report that shows that. In addition to that, another problem with the building here is that none of the windows operate, because that's the way the building was built based on the chiller and the air handler systems. The idea would be to replace several of the windows, not all of them, in a matching format, so we could have some operable windows to change air in the building. And in addition to that, in the police department, there's minimal funds in the budget you approved, but then look at the totality of it, which the chief and I and Joe have worked on in the last week and a half. Replace the ceiling tiles, replace the flooring, all the cabinetry that's installed, fix that floor in the radio room, put all new tile in and decorate. So all of those things are about ready to come back to you for a look as an expenditure from the Main Street TIF. And so we should be ready end of January to come back and report on that. So it will encompass all of that. Hopefully that frees up some funding for the chief for programmatic issues.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that.
Any other comments?
I have a question. I'm glad that you all spending $60,000 on the fireworks. That saved a lot of money.
Clerk, please call the roll.
One quick thing here. The subdivision beautification, I know it's I know it's not etched in stone, but the subdivisions, we're only considering 4. And I don't ever see Oak Glenwood considered in really anything that we think about. So my recommendation was to slash this instead of 80,000 to 75,000. So each subdivision would get 15,000 or something like that. Instead of 20 times 4, it should be split up 5 ways because there's still Oak Glenwood over here. Original, we call it original Glenwood, Old Glenwood. I know it's not in here. It's only the Forest, the Point, the Matterly Estates. We don't ever say anything about the other section.
Good point. So, and as everybody knows, once again, we can allocate the funds to different things. There's been a lot of great ideas in there. Clerk Williams, call the roll.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Lynch?
Yes.
Trustee Rowe? Trustee Taylor? Yes. Trustee Williams?
Somebody like to make a motion to table the appointments?
Second.
Is that trustee Roll or trustee Taylor? Roll. Trustee Roll and trustee Lynch. Clerk Williams, call the roll.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Clark? Trustee Lynch?
Yes.
Trustee Roll? Yes. Trustee Taylor? Yes. Trustee Williams?
Attorney's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Three items. First item is a request for approval of resolution supporting a Class 8 Cook County property tax incentive for the property at 18430 Halsted Street. For the record, let me tell people that this involves actually 4 PIN numbers, the Halsted Plaza. PIN numbers 3204-100-037, 3204-117-004, and 3204-117-005 are the existing Baptist liquor store, Chugga properties that are located on Halsted Street in the plaza. There's also a 4th PIN number which the applicant seeks to be purchasing from the village. It's 3204-100-117-008 for a development of a parking lot, extra parking for patrons of the restaurant there. So that's located to the back of the alley where those cameras up there.
Why don't we get a first and a second, and we'll have
So
and Adam come up. We got a first from trustee Lynch and a second from trustee Roll. And Sylvan, if you guys want to come up there. And then approval was request for resolution supporting Class 8 for the property at 18430 Halsted Street. This would be a recommendation to the county board. We cannot approve it, the county board's going to approve it. Go ahead.
Good evening, Adam Dodson, Sandra Law Firm, also here this evening is Silken Patel. Everybody knows Silken. Situation stands here, we have a buyer interested in this property, but in order to do so, understanding the taxes here in the south suburbs, this particular property, we're looking at a tax bill where we're almost $17 a square foot for taxes at this location. It's pretty high for the south suburbs. So, with that said, this new particular buyer would like to have the Class 8 in place and bring those taxes down to about $8 a square foot. And at the same time, I think some projects that have been planned are going to be continued by the new operator, new owner, which is the parking lot, and then the enclosure of the rooftop. So with the closure of the rooftop, they're anticipating sales to continue to increase, but the bottom line is that the tax base on the property tax base on this property is way too high for the operation itself. And I think Silken probably can attest to that because he'll continue to still manage the restaurant bar there.
So, as you guys know, in 2020, when we bought the property, we had the option of giving the Class 8 and also TIF. You received the bad representation at that time where I was not aware of the tax laws. I was represented in a wrong way where we declined that option. It was available to us to take it without any hesitation. We thought representation told us we can leave that and just work on the TIF. So it proved to be really bad idea. From the time they built that building, which was in July 2022, was the grand opening, 2 years out. From 2 years till now, we paid over $1 million in taxes. Over $1 million. And it cost me to build $2 million. So basically 50% of the value of the property has already paid in taxes. I was still able to sustain it, because we have other businesses that support, we're not going to let any businesses go down. We are always able to help each other, all of the business helping this business to stay afloat, but eventually something has to be done while I'm investing more in the town. I also wanted to build a rooftop enclosure that solves the problem of the summertime where 9 months not able to use the rooftop because of the weather. It's pretty cold, nobody wants to sit up there. So I do want to do an enclosure, complete enclosure, glass enclosure there too. And that requires pretty much $600,000 worth of investment because of the structural changes to the building itself. And that would require me to shut down the place we are trying to mitigate the shutdown as much less as possible, but it is required for us to do that because of some need for addition to some needs in the building. And also then we are also developing the lot. We purchased the land in the summer. We finally got the engineering from the village and also architecture done with the civil plans done, and we've submitted it for them to be ready for approval. So within, I would say, within 20-25 days, we should expect an approval, and everybody's lined up to start working on the lot building. Whatever money we save out of this establishment is going back investing in the vendor. We've already talking to a bank who wants to come to the lot number 6 of the corner lot, and I've actively participated in the discussion for redesigning a bank as an anchor with a couple of more units as a rental space. It's strictly a tenant-landlord relationship, but I'm helping them build the construction and making sure that they are happy with what they want to design it, and we are building it for them with as a tenant relationship. So we are actively developing that area. Everything is pretty much approved with our drawings, other than some of the civil work that requires to be done from the village standpoint. But we can work hand in hand from one side to another while they are, doing the other side of the work. So if that goes through, all the dollars that are saved from taxes are going back in development to the Ulster Cycle Plaza. And also I've been engaged in another developer who's helped me develop a property in Homewood, which is the old Brunswick zone in Orleans. So that's the developer who brought the casino in Homewood. I'm working with him on that property that we developed completely, and he's coming on board to help us get more tenants, quality tenants, national tenants to this area. Without a structure, it's hard to kind of bring them in the kitchen first. So structure is required for them to give options for leasing and getting more attraction of new tenants.
If I could just recap a couple things from an economic development perspective for the board. When Mr. Silken refers to, he got bad advice from his advisor back in the day when he did the original deal and took the redevelopment incentives involved as paying back as he paid his taxes. That hasn't been prudent for him. But in addition to asking you to support a resolution for the Class 8, he's giving up his current redevelopment agreement. That was part of our negotiation, so you need to be clear on that. He won't get both bites of the apple. It would reduce his real estate taxes that he pays semi-annually, but then he would be giving up his current redevelopment agreement on that building. And he's going to really spend extensively in that building to incorporate a rooftop covering, which would be all glass enclosure. It's going to require structural improvements up from the basement through the building. And we believe as your staff that that's going to help mitigate a lot of the noise complaints we've had in the summertime. So I think that's an enhancement. As the mayor referred to, on a Class 8 request, the duty of the village board is to simply support the local businessman in securing a Class 8. The village board does not offer or does not issue or approve the Class 8. They simply do a resolution of support, and then it's upon the property owner to take that down to the county and make application. There's one of those that failed because the people at Newell didn't do that. We signed the resolution, we voted the resolution, they never followed through, and I think they lost 2 years worth of incentive because of that.
Yeah, they filed some PTAC claims and we approved a resolution to try and get them to do that again. And I think it might work this time.
Right.
Though I saw the guy occasionally, he just complains about the county when he does.
So
but I think it actually might work this time.
the burden is upon the property owner to make sure they follow through, and with Mr. Dotson, I'm sure that'll be done. As was referred to earlier, we're in an economic battle. Every South suburban community in Cook County is in an economic battle for business. They can go to Will County at a fraction of the tax. They can go to Indiana for even less. But more importantly, on this particular consideration, the generation that Silken has made in sales tax for our community I believe, trumps any kind of tax incentive, because remember, everything that Silken pays in his tax bill, not everything, a few percentage doesn't go there, but the majority of his tax bill is going into the TIF, because that area was TIFed a few years ago and has probably 18, 19 years left on it, Jen, in that particular TIF?
I think it was 2017, so.
Probably about 17 years left on the TIF. So that real estate tax that you're looking at offering this resolution to support at a reduction is far offset by the 1% Village of Glenwood sales tax and the 1% that we get from the state on his sales tax, and he's generated over, I believe, $1 million in that. Is that right, Ed?
We are on our way to approximately $800,000 this year.
In this particular year. So, and again, as Silken has said, he's been very,
businesses are
number one and two in the town, absolutely. And as Silken has said, we continually meet on a regular basis to talk about those other 3 parcels that he's got deals on. And the most recent is to work with Fifth Third Bank for a relocation to bring in down south, which would free up the corner at 183 in Halsted for a new building there. And they seem to be well on the hook now and moving forward. So Silken is the real deal and brings us more development in that plaza.
Are there any questions?
So, first let me say, Mr. Patel, I appreciate you and the business. You have always illustrated a win-win structure for both your business and the village. You've contributed in more ways than I can count. And not just being a great partner, morally, but then also financially. Because when we get these, one of the first things I always do is look to see your pattern on the tax bill. You have been consistent with that, so we appreciate that because it has to be a win-win. We invest in you, you invest in the community, so we appreciate that. But I'm certainly in favor of approving this for a number of reasons, because each time you've come to the village, you've come with a solid plan, a proactive approach, and maintain consistent with it. And so I appreciate that when we do business with our partners in town. I only have just one statement and then one ask of you. That first statement would be, I know that with the development that you're planning on doing, and with the attraction of the casino, the hope is that business will boom, right? But I just as a moral point of clarity, this is similar to what happened at the Oaks. They get a lot of redevelopment thinking that would draw a larger crowd. So I just want to caution you, as a business owner, we're always looking for that edge. And I just hate, for that to become your situation, which by all accounts at this point, it doesn't seem to point that way, but because I respect you in your business so much, I just, keep that in mind. The Oaks, unfortunately, didn't pan out to be what we thought it would be, even after they were remodeled. But at least at this point, your business doesn't appear in any form to have any of those concerns. But then secondly, my ask would be to you as we work through these amendments to the building, right, and then your clientele hopefully increases, that you would maintain your standard of acceptance for customers. Because as this place grows and thrives, it attracts more attention, you get more foot traffic, more car traffic, and I'm certain as a business owner, while it's great for you, it also impacts revenue. So I would just hope that we always keep security as a forefront priority, just integrity of operating and hours, and just the crowd will be allowed in, because, you know, ultimately, when things happen in establishments, not only does it reflect the business owners, but it also reflects the community. You know, when we talk through it being marketed, social media, what have you, and while you have maintained excellent conversation publicly, we want to encourage that for you as you develop down the line. So that would be my only ask for you, but I am so happy for your success. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. We've taken a lot of concrete steps. We've always were heavy on security. Currently we have so many police guards out there just for protection. And it's an open checkbook for security. Never wavered away from paying the bill or cutting down security. Security first, and then we can worry about the rest. And we've never had an issue where we didn't have to pay the bill. So we are not in that position. Right? With the new development, even with the lot on the other side, it's more a bank, multiple individual tenant spaces, and it's more where it's more of a landlord-tenant relationship, where they will have their own skin in the game, I would say, running their own business at that point. But everything will be new, brand new construction, where everything will be followed with the lighting plans and all the landscaping plans and all that. So it's going to be definitely more.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a quick question. How long are you going to be closed? It says you're vacant less than 12 months.
We will be, we are trying to work with the construction team. We have to make sure that everybody's on board before we take the step, and then make sure that we are not ready for the materials and stuff. So that is still a little bit hard to judge right now, but we will minimize it as much as possible, and we will make sure that we do it on a very downtime or slow time, where we don't lose any customer base and ultimately suffer for customers.
Any other questions? Clerk Williams, call the roll.
Trustee Burke?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Lynch?
Yes.
Trustee Rowe? Yes. Trustee Taylor? Yes. Trustee Williams?
Aye.
We really appreciate your business and the fact that you're investing in the village development. We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Now, item 2.
Item 2 is approval of a resolution supporting a Class A property at 349 West 195th Street.
And we get a first and a second, and then we'll have Gavin come up and explain how to do it. So, Trustee Williams. Trustee Clark. Gavin, you want to come up? Shouldn't even went back and sat down.
I wanted to say something. Thank you again. Obviously, you got a little glimpse of the history of this property from Mr. Haddon earlier. But with that said, in 2019, when we came here for application, this is just from my recollection, there was never an official vote taken. It just never got to a motion in a second. It sat there and died on the floor. So with that said, what we're here for this evening is to tell you that we fulfilled everything we have from the client side. We made improvements to the property, we've hired people, we've invested in the community, and what we're asking for this evening is an opportunity to take a vote on Class A to see whether you can support it or not this evening. With that said, I'd be happy to answer any questions in regards to Mr. Catoni. I think many of you met him. He's a great gentleman. He's a great corporate citizen, and he'd do anything for this community as much as Mr. Silkin Patel would do if in any event that he was needed to do so.
If I could, Your Honor, from an economic development standpoint, in this particular application as well, as a point of clarification, any of those funds that were originally given, Mr. Catoni's never received any incentive dollars from the Village of Glenwood. For those of us who can't remember that far back, I can't remember the young lady that was Angel Abatement, who came in and then they diversified their business, moved the majority of it into Indiana, and then started to back out of this. They did spend a ton of money and did get an incentive from the former mayor for that property, and did a really great job of rehabbing it. But they only rehabbed the front building of that property. There's 2 buildings on the property. And what Mr. Catoni has done is taken the rear building and invested a ton of money in that to armor it because of the nature of his business, and he refaced it, and that's where the majority of his work goes on from his employees on a daily basis. So just as a point of clarification, this particular operator and current owner of that property has never received any incentive before. And we were clear, that was back when Mr. Bernanke was still here, we were clear that the monies that were awarded in the original redevelopment agreement to Angel Abatement was all properly used on the property, but that was before we used the current method of eat what you kill or use what you pay. That was an incentive that was given up front, but we did affirm that all that money was used on the property, and it was enhanced very, very nicely. So I just want to clear the fact that this particular owner has never gotten it incentive.
Is there any questions or comments?
John, how many gaming licenses are we allowed to have?
There's no limit.
So, where be an issue of, this would be number 6 or 7?
No, this is not a new gaming facility. He's the one that actually provides machines. There's 2 businesses. So he doesn't actually have anything.
So this would be an actual gaming cafe?
No. That's the servicing, the installation and servicing of the actual machines, I assume installation as well.
It's the installation or repair, all of the network connecting, all of the, whatever they call that in the electronic world, programming, and everything is done there, and then the processing is all done in that second building. So there is no activity on this site other than his employees.
So, I'm sorry, your name is
Adam.
But what is this owner, what is Mr. Ted generated in sales over the last year?
It's strictly a warehouse facility.
Well, I'm just talking about holistically, I mean, because if
Oh,
he is in that
You know, he's what you call is the supplier of the gaming units themselves. He's not the end user.
I get that.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, what's his yearly?
I have to find it out for you.
I'm trying to figure out, you know, specifically what would be the benefit for the village to give him this Class A. I mean, if he's performing well, at 44,000, I mean, at this point, if the Class A isn't applied, he would essentially be paying close to what some homeowners are paying in property taxes as retail. But I mean, this business is flourishing, this warehouse is flourishing. I'm just trying to stay cheap.
As opposed to the previous presentation, it doesn't generate the sales tax, which would go back right into our general fund. However, I don't know the exact number, but he does have local residents who are employed there, and he has increased his payroll or his employee base considerably because of the size of his business. And it's kind of a unique property, so I would caution that, I've never had the discussion with him, but I mean, there's other alternatives for him. He's probably on the verge of having to put an addition on, and he didn't ask for any money for any of that. And it would just be another dark building if he was to leave. But you're right, there is no
I just
addition.
don't understand the win for the village for losing revenue.
I would tell you that under the circumstances in 2019, he got caught up in something other than what the points of the merits of the matter were. And at the time, when you're purchasing the building and you're going to look to invest $200,000, that's a big risk. But the village didn't take the opportunity at the time to support the resolution. What happened, we're here today just asking for something that we were going to ask for in 2019 that didn't done. So that's why we're here. So you're saying great success. Why should I give it now? But we weren't a great success in 2019 when we purchased it.
Well, I'm not even considering the 2019 aspect. For me, it's just these Class 8s should be a benefit for both parties. As it generates revenue to put back into the community then gives some type of reprieve to maintain that relationship. But by all accounts at this point, it just seems that this would be a one-sided reprieve.
I understand, because $200,000 is spent.
You know, so that's all I have.
Any other questions?
One question, Mr. Dodson. The application that's attached to the resolution goes back to 2019.
Correct.
Right. Now, you're not looking to.
Well, let me go back and go back 3 years.
If you're not looking to redo his taxes going back to 2019 or 3 years even, you're looking to go 2024.
Going forward. Yeah.
With no possible peak then, right?
Done. Yeah.
Okay.
Is there any other questions? Clerk Williams, call the roll.
Trustee Brown?
Abstain.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Lynch?
No.
Trustee Rowe? Trustee Taylor? Yes. Trustee Wood?
No.
Okay, item 3.
Passes.
Next item, the last item is.
Thank you.
Thank you. Approval of approval of an ordinance regulating the use of village hall.
We recommend a motion in the second round and explain. So moved, Trustee Lynch.
Second.
Trustee Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. This came up as a result of the last election cycle. People were campaigning in the outer room here at the village hall, which generally everybody I think felt would be inappropriate. So we asked them to leave, and they did. And now before this campaign season gets in high gear, we wanted to kind of put this in an ordinance to clarify it for everybody. The building that's the vestibule out here, the lobby, this is intended to be a place of business where people can interact with their government, pay their bills, seek advice, get information, all the other things that go on here. It's quite a variety of things. And our thought is we don't want, what this ordinance says is we don't want people interfered with or delayed in any way as they're trying to do business with the village. So it prohibits that. However, this room here is specifically a place where people do have the right to address their grievances to the board and to address their government and make their opinions and have their First Amendment rights to state their mind and what they think, what we should do. So it doesn't apply here during meetings or before, or an hour before, or an hour after the meeting, because this is a place that's specifically set aside for people to, in fact, express their opinions and engage in their First Amendment rights. So while we can prevent someone from interfering with someone out there doing business with the village, this is the room that's for that purpose. So it doesn't apply to that.
Is there any questions? Clerk Williams, call the roll.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Lynch?
Yes.
Trustee Rowe? Trustee Taylor? Yes. Trustee Wood?
Aye.
Anything else, John?
That's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Administrator Mitchell.
Good evening, Mayor, trustees, and residents and guests that with us tonight. The first item that I am requesting for your approval on is for the information that is included in your packet for Civic Plus. Civic Plus takes care of the codification for the clerk's office. I've spoken with the deputy clerk, the clerk, we've spoken with the company, and we would like to get your approval to continue on the using Civic Plus. Right now, they are running a promotional, since we've been with them for some time, where we get a $700 discount. The total of this engagement will be $32.94. Any questions?
Well, I think our first and second, we'll discuss it. So would somebody like to make a motion for the contract with Civic Plus for the purpose of codification of ordinances not to exceed $3,394? First by Trustee Lynch, second by Wood. Any questions? Clerk Williams, call the roll.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Clark? Trustee Lynch?
Yes.
Trustee Rowe? Trustee Taylor? Yes. Trustee Wood?
Vasquez, I'm sorry, Ron was here from Heritage in the past, back around February, I believe, in which he told us that we were replacing a couple firewalls, but we still need to do the remaining 6. Included in your packet was the information in terms of where these 6 firewalls support. I would then ask for your approval of this item as well.
Would somebody like to make a motion for the approval of firewall or replace for purposes of IT security? And then we'll have discussion. We get a first and a second.
So moved.
Second. Trustee Taylor, trustee Lynch. Ron, if you want to come up and make a presentation?
Yeah, as Brian said, I was back in February. Then there were 2 firewalls that were end of life this year that will be replaced, which is the village, I believe, is everybody as well. There's 6 more remaining that are going to be end of life April 2025. So what a firewall does is it protects the network from outside threats, and additionally also connects all the buildings together. So, like for instance, we can get the public works on the cameras from here because we create a secure network between the buildings. And they're necessary. If they don't get upgraded, they're constantly upgraded almost daily with the newest threat management software. And if they're not, when they go and apply anything after that point, depending on which one that comes out, is a potential threat management software.
Any questions?
I have a question. How many firewalls are there in total?
So there's 2 here, there's the 6 that we replaced right now, which would be 8, and we also actually added 2 more for the Homeland Security project to connect the cameras from pump stations into the police department. So that makes 10. I believe there's 1 in Public Works as well. Oh, that's one of these. And then there's 1 in the other pump station, so 11 total.
So what's the life expectancy of these firewalls?
Well, these last ones, I believe we put in 2018, so we're looking at about 7 years. That's what these lasted. I can't predict what the manufacturers, because they ultimately set end of life dates, but 5 to 7 is the norm.
So we're doing like 2 firewalls, 5 to 7 years, another 2, then another 3, another 4, then another 1, like that? And you just...
The cycle will be now, when we replace all these, is those 2 that we did in February will come up in 5 to 7 years. And then the other ones, the rest of the other 9, are basically going to be brand new when we do it. So that'll be another 5 to 7 years from the time we install those. Because the ones at pump station, literally put them up.
Any other questions?
So how many
It's in here. We were doing 6, and the total cost is $92.31. It also includes a full year of protection as well.
Is there any other questions?
You know, it's $92.31 for 2 firewalls?
No, for all 6.
Oh.
And how long before you will be back before us? How long before you will be back before us for the remaining firewalls?
For the remaining firewalls, another 5 to 7 years. Because, like I said, all these 6 and the one that we just replaced are brand new. And the other 2 are 6 months old.
Is there a particular reason we do the stagger as opposed to at all at one time?
Well, the reason we did it this time is because those were end of life April 2024, so we had to get them done. And then these are end of life 2025. So instead of, if you want to bulk them all out, you could. But, that's kind of what we did.
And so the remaining was end of life for 2027?
I would say probably around there, yeah. I can't guarantee you.
But if we bulk them up, we have to replace other ones. It'd be more money.
No. We could. Yeah, if you decide to replace them all at one time, yeah, it would be more since 2015 with a 1-year break.
Yeah, I shouldn't say we, there was a vote at the board level to hire somebody else, and we went right back to Heritage after a year of,
Disaster.
I won't say that on the record.
I will. Since 2015.
So the motion is approval of firewall for replacing for purposes of IT security, not to exceed $9,231.
So moved.
We already have 9,200, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. 17,000. No. So, I guess we already had our first and a second, so clerk Williams, just call roll.
Trustee Brown?
And we won't see you for how, when again, 7 years?
For the firewalls.
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Lynch?
Yes.
Trustee Rose? Trustee Taylor? Yes. Trustee Williams?
Item 3.
Thank you, Mayor. One correction. I apologize. It's Anthony Valdez. I don't know why I said that. Okay, moving on to the third item. Couple of background information. Last year, the board did approve the operations manager. It was also approved to hire a full-time accountant. In regards to that, we're able to hire the director. We have, as we all know, Brian is here as the operations manager. What we're looking at doing now is transitioning that from a full-time accountant to a part-time accountant / bookkeeper, as long as the board is agreeable with the plan. If that's the case, we'll be posting that position, working on the job description, posting that position, probably within the next 2 to 4 weeks. The other thing we're doing is that we're working, I want to say about 3 weeks ago, we had a call with Curtis State looking at an intern program that they have and being able to help students there and as well help us here at the village to help them to understand municipal finance and to see how that would also work as another option. Right now, Miller Cooper is still working on balancing unreconciled checks, and then they're going to start training Brian on doing that. The goal would be to phase out Miller and Cooper hopefully within 3 months, depending on 2 things. One, the applications that we receive for the part-time position based on that person's or people qualifications, and also how we continue to progress with this program at Prairie State. If the one at Prairie State doesn't work out, I've already started conversations with Governor State University as well. Once we do that, the main thing for this agreement is to make sure that if anything changes in our finance department right now, we still have an agreement with Miller and Cooper to keep them re-engaged to kind of keep moving forward as we need. One thing that came up earlier tonight was in terms of how we terminate them early. One thing that is in the agreement is that if we do terminate the engagement, that our agreement is that we will pay them for all services rendered and products delivered, expenses incurred, and non-cancelable commitments. We don't have, since they've been engaged, we haven't had any commitments with them where they've had to go engage other services outside of just themselves. The person that they have that works here, that's scheduled by time of need that we have, so we can still be able to break away from that. With that being said, this is an identical agreement that we've had in the past. The only difference is that their rate has gone up by $5. The rate in the past was $150 to $180, or $150 to $175. The rate now is $155 to $180. So, if there's any questions, I'll entertain.
Well, why don't we get a first and second?
Absolutely.
So I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the emergency contract with Miller Cooper and Company Ltd. Limited, I should say, it's not an open-ended contract, and we should be able to terminate with proper notice.
So moved.
Trustee Taylor. Trustee Clark, any questions?
I have a question. So this 150 to 180 is an hourly rate?
Correct.
Okay. So if we engage in services, this is what we would be paying.
Yes.
And presently, we're paying.
Presently, we are paying, no, I'm sorry, the new rates would be $155 and $180.
The rate we're currently paying is $150 and $175.
Any other questions?
I don't have questions, but, Brian, the village administrator, you know, several months back, I sent a letter with just my disdain for the company. I'm not in favor of, re-engaging in a contract with them. For nothing else, I mean, we had relatively part-time dedicated person 2 days a week at a maximum of roughly, maybe 16 hours a month or close to something like that. And we paid this company over $200,000. And in fact, when the gentleman was here, I asked him specifically, he said that everything was reconciled. So I'm not sure now what remains that changed from when he was here versus now. But I'm not confident that they will not try their very best to maximize costs or charges to the village, because for the cost of what we pay versus the manpower we receive from their company, and just me personally, I'm mortified by it. I mean, I probably got to change the reasons. That's unrealistic. And I understand the position of the union, and if maybe we need to look at an alternative company or redirect how we manage what we're asking him to do, I don't know. But even when he came and he presented no practical information of what they resolve, no type of intentionality about the benefit of that cost that we paid them for a year. So I don't think they just were good partners for us. So I'm just not in favor of it.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a question. So there's a rate range from 150 to 175. How do we? No, listen. How do we determine who gets 150 an hour? Right? How is that range determined between 150 and 175? That's part one of my questions.
Right.
And how many minimum hours? Do we have minimum hours for them and maximum hours?
No, that's really controlled by the workflow. Now, the first person we have is Ashley. She's paid at the amount of 150. The supervisor that oversees her work, anything else, is John. It was before we did the last meeting, one of the last meetings. In terms of hours is decided by what we have them working on. So if something takes them 8 hours, then they get 8 hours. So we give them something that is more demanding, where we need them to make 3 days a week, but then now you're at 24 hours. Again, the goal is to respectfully work them back out of the village and to take everything under our own road.
Are there any other questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
So what is the other alternative other than using, Miller Cooper?
Well, I would say we went out and looked for another company. The first challenge I would identify is that Miller Cooper, when they first got in, they thought it was going to be a lot easier to get started. As you know, we've had some conversations about our software, understanding our system, understanding our accounts. That would be partly a learning curve. I can't tell you whether that's going to be a 2-month learning curve or a 5-month learning curve for the person or for the company. But right now, I think what we're looking at is to get to the point of having a plan to use them as little as possible so that we're back on our feet.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, we would be using them on an as-needed basis.
That is the absolute goal, yes.
I don't know if, Brian, if you wanted to add anything, since you've been working with them, some more else,
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest part is, what if something happened to me? You guys would be back into a bad situation, and if you didn't have this, what is your backup plan? So, I mean, I hate to threaten it that way, because they do have the knowledge already, they've learned this over the last, I don't know how long they've been here, but they do have the knowledge. That's the positive about keeping this going. I think your other statement is, this is an as-needed thing, so we need to be consistent about getting out and not needing them anymore. and developing a staff and a backup plan internally so that we could totally get out of this situation.
But the initial, if I'm not mistaken, and I might be comparing apples to oranges, but wasn't the original contract, wasn't the premises of it kind of an as-needed basis? Because they weren't here on a schedule. You know, she had one person here, and then would have her boss when as needed.
Correct.
And then we're here a few hours a day at a maximum of 16 hours a month, and we still end up paying over $200,000.
I don't think we've ever been at 16 hours a month, and maybe been 16 hours a week, but going by the demands of the things that needed to be done, it was either gonna be, not having a finance director and really anybody in finance other than myself and Carolyn and Tiffany doing some of the work. That's where we were starting to fall even further behind. And I didn't think we wanted to continue being behind, so we had to do what? Keep the engagement going with them to get the work done.
So how did, and just my last statement, so how did we then end up paying a company to do almost double the salary of what we would be regularly paying in the finance department?
Anytime you have a consultant, you're looking at 2 to 3 times the rate of that. And that's the benefit of trying to get rid of it.
And so, I know you said that there's still reconciliations to be done, but the gentleman said that they were done. What's happening there? Is there still much more work to be done?
So the big reconciliation process is done. It hasn't been handed over to me yet. But the biggest piece that they're working through right now is reconciling all the checks to make sure that we know what are the outstanding checks in the system. Because I'll call it our antiquated system, as maybe Leon Moore would reference it. Nobody was keeping that up to date, so they're helping us get that back to reality and as of the reconciliations of what checks are still outstanding.
So then what would, once that's completed, the initiative, then at what point, what would they be doing on an as-needed basis then? What would be the use of them?
Hopefully very little or nothing. And I tend to lean towards the nothing. If once Brian is trained, once we have, staff and you on a crisis plan that I just kind of laid out, then there should not be a need.
I just my personal feelings, I felt like they exaggerated the work to stick to the village. I know we talked about this, and I know you've broken it down, so that's just, I'm just not confident in their ability to come back on board, and we don't see anything under $100,000 for their contractual service. And I think they're in the industry to make business, but we are here to be stewards of our business, so.
Believe me, trustee, if we could have hired a finance director a lot sooner, we could have probably been a lot further ahead of the conversation that we're having now. But with us not being able to get a finance director, fortunately, we got an operations manager that's, in my opinion, doing a great job. I think we need to continue looking forward and not forget what happened behind us, but we got to move forward.
In the end, if we just had one checking account, I think we wouldn't be in this situation, but we have multiple accounts, we have multiple processes which we collect money, from ePay clearing, Doxo, regular check, cash. So the complexity was a lot for them to understand and to work through when you have Doxo taking up to 5 days to process and actually show up on our bank statements compared to ePay is within the next day. All those complexities added to it not just being a simple, hey, I can go through my checkbook and check this off and we're good.
But would you not agree that a contributor factor to that was the limited amount of time that they were available to the village? I think that because we saw them maybe once or twice a week for 16 hours, if you will, with so much work to be powered through, again, because it kind of calls into drag the process out.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things we're thinking about doing, and we're in the process of doing, just so you know, we are looking to consolidate bank accounts. Because, you know, over the years, they open bank accounts for everything.
Yeah.
How many bank accounts do we have, 20? We have consolidated some of those, because some of them went dormant, you know, because we hadn't had funds and used them.
I'm slowly going through them and getting them either closed or converted over to all interest-bearing accounts as I can. But when we need to cut a check from the account, I really can't change that to an interest-bearing.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have one. I'm just trying to get understanding of contract versus agreement. So it says here that this agreement will remain in effect through December 31st, 2025, and includes monthly and closing financial reporting, et cetera, et cetera. So if the agreement will remain in effect through the end of next year, then I guess part of my question, how do we say that we're gonna phase them out in 3 months? Is there some kind of, so when a contract is broken, this agreement, do we have the flexibility, even though it says here that it's good through next year? How do we phase them out in 3 months?
We don't request the services.
So is this a month-to-month agreement, like?
This is an agreement where we can terminate at any time with proper notice.
What is the, if you can't answer, I don't know, what is, if the shortest amount of time is 3 months, what is the longest amount of time that you foresee?
Well, I'm really trying to stick to the 3 months. I mean, the longest amount of time would be I have to come back to the board if this goes past December of 2025.
Any other questions? Clerk Williams, call the roll.
Trustee Brown?
Can you come back to me, guys?
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Lynch?
No.
Trustee Rowe? Trustee Taylor? Yes. Trustee Williams?
No.
Trustee Brewer?
I said no.
Trustee Rowe? Trustee Brown?
Wait a minute. I'm gonna abstain.
I vote yes. But Ryan, we need monthly reports on this from Cooper because we've got to terminate the contract as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Engineering, Dave.
Thank you, Mayor. No report.
Police, Chief Petty.
Mayor, trustees, presidents, and guests, start out with the police report. This is kind of an overview of the month of November. The month of November, the police department responded to 720 calls for service. Most frequent calls were traffic stops, assist fire department, street officers, criminal alarms. A couple of specific events we had were an aggravated battery to an officer during his service in the 184 block of South Austin. The offender was arrested and charged accordingly. Not seeing the alert, we had criminal sexual abuse, assault charges filed against the defendant who was a high school teacher, coach in the area, because it was a 6-year-old student from American jurisdiction. That incident occurred at private residence, and we're in the court system now. With 3 activations for the South Suburban University response teams to assist other agencies with critical incidents and search warrants. We've completed crimes activations to assist another agency with homicide. Numerous arrests throughout November, majority of the traffic offenses, suspended license, DUIs, 1 burglary arrest, with a couple of arrests for unlawful possession of cannabis, possession of controlled substances, and warrants. 1 November, officers received training in our non-lethal taser devices, crimes response, and legal aspects of human rights and police legitimacy. also became a certified police firearms instructor, conduct in-house training for officers. Also, Officer Jelani Farley attended the annual Tactical Officer Association Training Conference, and again, that knowledge we'll bring back and share with our officers during our training. Again, reiterate this time of year, holiday season, be wary of package thefts. Try to retrieve packages as soon as possible, use the tracking features, make sure you know when the packages are online, who to arrive. We did welcome new officer, Ron Smith, to the Rome Police Department, who was sworn last week. He's a former certified police officer, so he's skipped the academy. He's started field training, learned to build our policies, procedures, and operating standards of the police department, as well as the other necessary training. As miscellaneous matters, we met with the Rome Police League to discuss safety concerns related to seasonal crime trends, internet crimes and scams, home repair fraud, and other methods for avoiding being victimized. Our officers participated in monthly Lunch with the Law / First Responders at the junior high. It's a great community youth engagement program. We meet with students every month to forge positive relations. Myself and Deputy Chief Williams also this past Saturday participated in the Southburg Massachusetts Police annual Shop with Cop event with students from the area. That was a great event. That concludes my report. I also have one agenda item.
So I'll get it first and a second, then you can explain it. Motion to request to enter into a 5-year purchase agreement with Axon Enterprises Inc. for the purchase of 24 Axiom 10 tasers that include accompanying equipment and training for the total price of $116,985.60. Payments February 2025, $23,397.12. February 26th, the same amount. February 27th, the same amount. February 28th, the same amount. And February 29th, the same amount. Do we have a first?
So moved.
Trustee Taylor, do we have a second?
You do.
Trustee Williams. Okay, Chief, go ahead.
That was my request. Our current tasers were purchased 2015, 2016. They're company backs them for 5 years, so we're coming about 4 or 5 years out of warranty. And so our new tasers we increase our range, accuracy, number of cartridges available. They're also more water and debris resistant. And they come with additional safety factors to prevent accidental confusion between tasers and duty weapons.
Okay, is there any questions for the chief? Clerk Williams, call roll.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Clark? Trustee Lynch?
Yes.
Trustee Rowe? Trustee Taylor? Yes. Trustee Williams?
Public Works, Joe. Chief, do you have anything else? Okay. Public Works, Joe.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone still in attendance. Public Works is in dire need of replacing vehicles and have contacted 3 dealers to submit quotes for vehicle purchase. Gardner Chevy, Women's Commercial Truck and Fleet, and Curry Motors. The quotes are for 3 Chevy 2500 crew cabs with top packages and 1 Chevy 5500 minigun or similar. These purchases will replace vehicles M3, M4, M5, M8, with vehicle M3 being transferred to ESDA, vendor use, and vehicle vehicle M8 being transferred to the golf course maintenance crew for them to use. I'm seeking a motion to approve the quote from Gardner Chevy for no more than $84,318 for the Chevy 5500 dump, and no more than $189,900 for the 3 Chevy 2500s, with a grand total of no more than $274,218. These funds are budgeted for and will come directly from both the Public Works General Fund and the Sewer Fund.
So the motion was read. We have a first and a second, and we have discussion. So moved, Trustee Lynch.
Second.
Trustee Brown. Any questions?
I just appreciate you, Joe, for going through that bidding process, so thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Clerk Williams, call roll.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Clark? Trustee Lynch?
Yes.
Trustee Rowe? Trustee Taylor? Yes. Trustee Williams?
Thanks for that package. It was cool.
No problem, thank you.
Yeah, it was a nice package.
Yeah.
Very good.
It made it much easier.
Took a little time, but you got it.
Trustee Williams, you got a vote? why don't we get a first and a second on this, and then we can have discussion. Do we have a motion for the approval of the ordinance levying taxes for the fiscal year beginning May 1st, 2024, and ending April 30th, 2025, in the village of Glenwood, Illinois? So moved.
Second.
Is that trustee Lynch?
Yes.
Okay, trustee Williams, is there any questions? Or Brian, do you want to make a brief statement? Other than, Cook County tax has gone through the roof, as everybody knows. I was on a call with First Katie this morning, and through the South Suburban Area Manager, we're trying to get with Cook County and the border review, we're trying to get a handle on this horrible situation that Cook County goes through with the last tax bill. But I want everyone to know the village of Glenwood over the last 6 years, maybe 7 years now, we've only raised our portion of the taxes by 1.7%. Our levy has not increased more than 1.7% over the last 6 years. So your increases are based on other taxing bodies who typically increase their taxes 4.9% a year. The assessed valuation of the property, they switch things around, and the assessor and board of review reduce the assessed valuation on commercial properties, and they increase the assessed valuation on residential properties. And their thought process behind that was the fact that during COVID, they wanted to give a little break to the residents. This is what they say, I don't necessarily agree with it, but they wanted to reduce the residential assessed valuations during COVID, which is increasing. So, but go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, as discussed earlier during Mr. Moore's comments, this was based on what was approved in July for our appropriations. So it isn't the budget, and I guess the best way to kind of describe this is, as I was going through the process and learning it, my intent would be the budget's done before we do appropriations, hence the appropriations is created off of the budget to then get to this point in doing the levy. Didn't quite make that timeline for this year, but this is again based on how I saw it being done the last few years. It's done based on the appropriations. Of that, the other thing is that we did hold the levy to the same value as a year ago, which was $4,748,508. So there is no increase in the levy from the village perspective within this package.
Any questions for Brian? Clerk Williams, call the roll.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Lynch?
Yes, and Mayor, if I just could, I'm sorry, I don't have any questions, but I just would hope that this next cycle, that we consider increasing the levy. I know that we do it as a benefit to the residents, but it's also important to keep in mind cost of living increases, and so is operating in the village. So at some point, we're going to have to raise taxes.
Well, then we have already started our budget process, getting the questionnaire put together and stuff like that, so we've already started that.
Trustee Taylor? Yes. Trustee Williams?
Yes. Is there any new business? Any old business?
Just one request for the old business. I keep asking for a consistent report from Glenn Woody.
I thought we had a report.
No, every other department head consistently gives reports except for Glenn Woody, and I'd like to see a report from Glenn Woody on a more consistent basis. I keep asking.
Ryan, can you make sure you talk with Phil on the
Yes.
application this week, but tell him that we need to report him in Monday.
Yes, absolutely. And Mayor, if I can, before we get to adjourn, if I can just wish, on behalf of staff, department heads, and all staff, wish everybody a happy holiday season.
And the condolences to trustee Lynch and lost your grandmother.
Thank you.
Somebody like to make a motion to do it?
Happy holidays and have a safe holiday.
That's right.
Even in the new year.
Oh, I forgot. Oh my God, Christmas is 8 days away. Here goes shopping. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Trustee Taylor. Trustee Clark. Clerk Williams, call the roll.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Clark? Trustee Lynch?
Yes.
Trustee Roll? Trustee Taylor? Yes. Trustee Williams?